Sanmonani. Ninjani? Haw, sijabulela ukunibona namuhla. Friends, brothers, colleagues, comrades. For me, Agile has been a political journey. Within the context of South Africa, I saw something in Agile that was a silent revolution. Just like in 1994, power changed hands and there was no violence. For me, Agile was the same. I was working in IT. There was a guy who used to tell me what to do, and I would do it. And I didn't even really know what the ultimate goal was. I just used to do it, right? And then Agile came along, and then we started to actually have conversations as a team about what needs to happen. And as time went by, these conversations started to include more and more things like, oh, well, how do we want to structure our team? Which competencies are most important for our team? The team started to take more and more power. Even at some stage, various goals within the team were chosen by the team. That was a clear exchange of power. There was a clear de-emphasis on traditional styles of leadership, where now we are moving towards a lot more self-management at a team level. And for me, again, this is a very political thing. It's an exchange of power. And that's why I've decided to run this session like a political rally. I am going to need you to partake. Every once in a while, I'm going to scream, Sifunani! And you guys are going to scream, what's this? Sustainable Agile. Actually, let's change that. Sustainable agility. You know? So let's give it a try. Sifunani! There we go. Oh, guys, you guys you're here. And then, after that, I'm going to shout, Amandla! And you know what to say, right? Away too! Because what I am trying to present here today is a way for us to extend this quiet revolution further outside of the IT groups. The IT groups have been the people who have been championing it and have taken it to where they have taken it. But now they've hit this barrier where the organizations within which these IT groups are working are not as agile as them, and then it causes this friction where they can't sustain this agility or even grow it even further, but mostly they can't even sustain it, and they start backsliding into old practices. And that's where we are going to try and solve for, giving the rest of the organizations tools for understanding Agile, working with Agile, without thinking of it as a software-oriented framework. That's what we're going for. Amandla! Sifunani! Yeah, bafwethu. So I've grouped everything into, so this framework, that's what it does, guys. It actually just tries to abstract away the ideas of agility in such a way that it has nothing to do with software development, but can work for any group and can scale as well. And what I've tried to also do is sort of bring it back to Africa, because we are in Africa. So with each section I have down here, I've got a Bantu phrase that speaks to exactly that. So let's get this party started. This is a website, guys. I'm presenting off a website that I and a couple of collaborators have created. In the spirit of agility, everything should be a living document. There should be no document that just dies somewhere. So, the black people are already laughing because of the Bantu phrase that I have over here next to the word cadence. It says, Jaivas Febe. And Jaivas Febe basically is what you say to somebody who's doing something very well. Hey, Jaivas Febe! You know? But it speaks to dancing, because Jaiva means dance. It speaks to dancing because what we are all doing is dancing together. And that's what Cadence gives a structure for, dancing. And yeah, each section will have one of the things. So guys, like I said, this is the bigger picture over here. Let's start at the bigger picture from the get-go. We are looking for simplicity. We are looking for that to not happen. I can hold this. Can you hear me still, guys? Right. We are looking for simplicity, guys. We are looking for something that can scale, and things that need to scale need to be incredibly simple. What we are not looking for is this down here, right? This is the standard diagram that they give out for SAFE. With all of these things, I fall asleep just looking at this diagram. But what we want is something as simple as this, that says the structure is as simple as this, and you can repeat it as many times as you want in every department that we want. And the core concepts that we are dealing with here is, on the far side over there, is the concept of a group. And a group has within it teams, goals, and sprints. And a team has tasks, and sprint has conversations. These conversations are going to be probably the most important takeaway of this session, but for now, let's just continue looking at this structure. Let's look at the different sections. Let's start at groups. Groups is the new idea that we've actually added here. Traditional Agile has always had a focus on teams. It actually spoke to how teams can achieve the things that they want to achieve. But what I've found is that, and when I say what I've found, is I work in IT. I work at a big investment bank, who shall not be named. And we've actually implemented a version of Cadence. And it is running all by itself. I don't even have to attend the meetings anymore. The guys gather and discuss things at this level. So what was happening is that the teams themselves were very agile, but then it was in little silos of agility. And we needed a simple and easy way to bring that agility to the larger group. So where the entire department can actually say, we are agile at a group level, right? Because can you actually say you're agile at a group level just because all the teams are agile? Not necessarily, especially if they could be working at odds, right? And are not communicating with each other in that same sort of cadence that you get at a team level, right? So we introduced this in order to solve for that. And the group was the first idea we needed to introduce. Is this link not working? It is. And the group is the fundamental holder for all things within the idea of Cadence. It is the self-managing team. It is the one that sets all of the largest goals and says, this is what we are all trying to do, right? It is also, you know, something that, I guess I can come back to budgets and dashboards, but it is also the core thing that we have to report on. It's the thing that we are nurturing in Cadence, the existence of the group and how it manages to achieve its thing. And so we're no longer looking at individuals here. We are always looking at teams that are within a group and how they take things forward, right? Amandla! Sifunani! Agility! Right? So, and then within these groups, you will have the teams, obviously. The African saying to go with that is umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which is basically one of the favorite sayings of Bantu people everywhere, but it's also very significant because what it's actually trying to say is that there's very little that you will ever achieve as an individual. Indeed, even if you do think that you achieved things as an individual, you were just lying to yourself because you were standing on the shoulders of the people around you the whole time. So just accept it. Understand that you are always working with the people around you and that you are always within the context of possibly groups within groups, and move ahead with that understanding already in play. Right? So within these groups, then we will obviously have multiple teams. And these teams will have their own functions that they are designed to achieve, whether they are an operations team or a development team or whatever kind of team that they might turn out to be, a governance team. But then they bring that competency. And in the world of Cadence, that got really small. They are capable of self-designing, self-management, and even, obviously, at the very core, executing on tasks that help us achieve our larger goals. And then, again, as you can see here, we are still working with abstractions that are not IT related at all. I'm adamant that, how can I put this? We in South Africa, are suffering from a lack of organization in the sense that we want to achieve so much, but organizing is hard. And it has such a great dependency on leadership. And with this dependency on leadership and the shortage that we suffer from leadership, we suffer from a shortage of leadership, we find that a lot of the great ideas that may help Africa get to where it wants to get to stall. And what we are looking for here is to get momentum without such a type of leadership. And again, it speaks to what we started out with when we said we need an exchange of power where leadership has always been saturated into a single individual or a job role or a job. And we were having a conversation yesterday about divorcing the job of leadership from the role of leadership, so that there is no job for leadership. And the role of leadership is spread out amongst all of us. And this is what this is actually attempting to do, to create that exchange of power from that concentrated thing that has so much potential for failure and also presents as a bottleneck, and making it something that is all of our responsibility and gives that framework to say, oh, okay, we can do it using this framework. Amandla! Sifunani! Guys, that's not it. Let's try this again. Amandla! Sifunani! Guys, and I'm talking to you like this because who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? You are going to do it. It's not going to happen magically. Management, project managers, and executives are not going to come and bring this to you and say, yes, let's use this. You are the ones who are going to have to say, guys, this is how we must try and make a change and take back the power into our own hands. And that's why this is a political rally and not just a talk, you know? So the team, then again, is the core fundamental unit of competence and action within that space. And here, the Bantu saying is, umngani akabizwa, which is to say that you don't call a friend. The friend is here already, you know? If you have to call him, he probably wasn't a friend to begin with, you know? So, cool. And then, again, held by groups is the concept of sprints. Sprints are the cycle or the time period in which goals and tasks are achieved, right? Not specific about what those goals and tasks are. It's just an abstract concept of goals and tasks. And the sprint, in our implementation, what we found, guys, is that it is not useful to have 2-week sprints at a team of team levels. It is just because you're now dealing with a larger animal, really, that may, you know, have 40 to 50 people within it. Because we were doing it at a departmental level, and we had 60 people. It did not make sense to, you know, sort of measure your actual movements at a, you know, bi-weekly level, fortnightly level. So we went with a 3-month sprint. And that made absolute sense. It aligned with business. So you plan at the beginning of that 3-month sprint, and you retro at the end of that 3-month sprint. But then this is also very, very scalable in the sense that the concept of a sprint now is no longer, you know, that it's just the idea that what period are we measuring ourselves over? So you could measure yourself over a year. Imagine you were a team of teams with you know, over 1,000 people that you are running a set of goals for. In that, you might have huge strategic objectives that, you know, you're saying we want to restructure our company. You know that's not going to take 3 months. So you may have something, a sprint that takes a whole year, right? So the concept of sprints now is as scalable as it needs to be depending on what it is that you are trying to achieve. Further to that, and then here the saying is ukuhamba ukubona, which is just a straightforward way of saying you have to walk the road to know what's going to happen. And I think people have touched on that in this. You know, the walking of the road is the important thing around here. It's not just theorizing. Amandla! That's it. That's it. And then there's obviously our goals and tasks. I think we've already spoken to that, you know. This is what we are committing to anytime we are starting a sprint. We are, and the Bantu saying here is, ubuhle bomuntu amazwi wakhe, which is to say, the beauty of a person is his word. And the direct translation for that is, word is bond, yo. You know? If you say you're going to do that shit, you got to do that shit. Right? and that's the goals and tasks that we are actually talking to over here. And then, finally, we have the concept of conversations. And these, for me, are the most powerful tools in our repertoire as we walk this journey of taking back power from existing structures that have concentrated power in pyramids and are trying to spread things out into something that is sustainable and is led by all of us on the ground. These conversations, and I call them staged conversations, in the sense that they are the very tool by which we diffuse leadership amongst ourselves, by sitting and getting together. And you've already seen this when you have a normal sprint, in a normal agile sprint. You've seen that even if there's no leadership there, the stand-up happens. They know what questions to ask. They know what to do thereafter because of the questions that were asked, in the absence of somebody saying, hey, you are doing this, or asking the questions, straightforward. Because we know what questions need to be asked, that already just creates that space for a self-managing team. And there's all sorts of different types of conversations. I think I'm listing 3 over here, but I really believe that over time we will discover more types of staged conversations that allow us to take power and diffuse it amongst ourselves. Amandla! Sifunani? Yinto esifunayo bafowethu. And the Bantu saying here that I've got here is ukuthula ukufa, which is to say silence is death. You cannot keep quiet. When we have a meeting as people and you are sitting there as a bystander, you might as well not be in that meeting and must probably leave. We have to, in all of these situations, understand that we are taking our power, not having it given to us, because it can't be given to you. That's another saying that's out there somewhere. Power cannot be given to you. You must take it. And you take it by partaking in these conversations in a productive manner, right? So there's 3 types of conversations that I've staged conversations that I've abstracted from the Agile world already. We're already doing this in the Agile world. We have strategic staged conversations, right? And that's where we decide a lot of big things for our teams and try and understand what our goals are, break them down into achievable tasks, and maybe even some who must do what if necessary. It's depending on what your structure is like. So yeah, the common questions that you might design in, and again, you are designing these conversations for yourself. When you create a cadence sprint for yourself. So what I'm imagining, let me just take a little side road here. What I'm imagining is that you guys will go back to your organizations and not necessarily call it cadence, call it something else, but use this site as reference. And sell them the idea that, guys, I have a way for us to organize at a team of teams level. And these are the words that we're going to use to, and these are the words and tools we're going to use to do that, right? And then you're going to teach them these different types of ways of actually designing the conversations. So these are conversations you probably already are having, but now you are going to extract the key questions that you have been asking or that a manager has been asking. There's probably some guy who was driving these conversations and asking the hard questions. So in a staged conversation, that key question, those key questions get extracted and made into a template for the conversation. Am I making sense, guys? Amandla! And it's wathatha kanje. So, we create these templates for conversations based on these hard questions that we have to ask ourselves. And like I said, the 3 types that I've identified so far, and I'd like for all of us to identify as many as possible going forward. The first type is strategic, and we said like the questions here are, what are our goals? What are the individual tasks that we must achieve? And maybe questions around priority. And then there's tactical conversations. Tactical conversations are what keep us here. Yeah? Keep it here. Keep it here. So you must have that tactical conversation regularly, at regular intervals. And you must ask also other hard questions like, okay, where are we now? Well, it's your stand-up. It's your stand-up, but now it's playing at a larger level. Oh, guys, there's so much detail that I'm missing out on here. In our implementation back at the office, we had these teams of teams, right? And we needed representatives because it wasn't conducive to get a department of 60 people into a room, right? To discuss stand-up type stuff. So we needed representatives. And we wanted to have diffuse sort of representatives who weren't the team lead, because what happens in the case when it's the team lead is that we fall back into old concentrations of power where this guy is our representative, and then finally he ends up being the only one talking at planning meetings and blah, blah, blah. So we consciously said that, A, the team lead cannot be the representative at staged conversations, any staged conversation. And B, it cannot remain the same guy indefinitely. It must rotate quite regularly, and every team member must get a chance to be a representative. This is just a mechanism that we just built in there just to try and see if we can really enable this engagement at a very real level, right? So you guys can think about how you get that right in your own spaces. This doesn't try and enforce any of that. It really just is trying to give you a structure to talk about Agile at scale without it being complex, without it being, sort of specific to anything other than we are trying to be agile at a scale that is larger than just the team, right? Oh, and then the third type of staged conversation is introspection and retrospection, where really you just look at how you did and whether you succeeded, whether you failed, and maybe what you might need to change. So this is standard stuff that we've been doing in Agile, so you know about that. But now, I think the big concept here again, guys, is that the mechanism that takes power that was concentrated and diffuses it amongst us is these staged conversations. And when we do that, we will get, people to engage in very real ways, Okay, let's do this again, guys. Amandla! Sifunani! I believe you. I believe that's what you want, right? Because you're here, right? Okay, what else we got? Oh yeah, so that's the main set of ideas that we are working with when we are trying to create this structure. And I think that if we, wait a second, I believe I may have something else. Aha. I think that all things that we create, again, we will have to create together. There's never going to be the story of one person creating this. So that's why I've registered this site. It's agilecadence.org. And the plan for this website is for it to be a living document, and then in phase one, where we sort of really just, as we all try it in our own different spaces, start talking, having a conversation about what worked and what didn't on the site, update the document along the way, and then further down the line, we can add functionality for actually capturing your groups, your teams, your sprints, goals, tasks, and conversations. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. Your conversations are what change your goals and tasks mid-sprint. Because you can't always stay in static mode, right? So your conversations have the actual function of sort of recording what the current status of goals and tasks are, and B, changing strategy and tactics if necessary, right? Yeah, so I'd like to get to the point where maybe we're using the site or a site like this, which conforms to this structure in order to capture our groups, teams, sprints, goals, and conversations, and then can give dashboards to who did we say we are targeting with this, guys? We want the executives and the project managers to be like, wow, this makes so much sense to me. I'm throwing away my project plan and my budget. And we will look at our company through this, sort of paradigm. Because right now, they are looking at line items on a project plan. But we want them to now look at this dashboard that we create based on, okay, this is the group. These are the teams. These are the goals that they are feeding into. This team is amber on task Y. This team is red on task B, and all of that type of stuff. And we can create all sorts of dashboards. I thought of bringing the dashboards that we created in the workplace. They were mostly red, amber, green, because project managers understand that. And then I thought, oh, okay, is this what they mean when they talk about, intellectual property? Let me stay away from that. So I didn't bring that. But I also thought, let's not limit our creativity. The different types of dashboards that you can create when you actually already have all of that data that says, these are the goals and tasks, these are the teams that they're assigned to, this is the status which is in, and these are the regular conversations that update the status and keep the data up to scratch. The type of dashboards that you can create are, sort of ridiculous, lots of them. So I didn't want to sort of shape that for you. I think there's opportunities to do that right here, and I think one day there'll be an actual high-level menu item for dashboards only. And another high-level menu item that I do want to add at some stage in the future is the question of budgets, because that's also a big blocker for people who want to work with Agile. They don't see how Agile works well with money. And I think that that's something that we can develop together as a community. But I think in my thinking of it, so we haven't even gotten to that at the office yet. That's next year once business has bought into it and has started attending our staged conversations and isn't looking at us like, those guys, I must cut their budget, those ones, So in that space, I think what we will want to do is introduce the concept of budget at a team level, I mean at a group level, where we know how much we're working with overall, and then you set a limit and say, for this particular goal, this is overall how much we think we want to spend to achieve said goal. And then you keep a track of how much each task has been costing so far. So you get your projected budget and your actuals afterwards, which is pretty much standard how budgets work, except now we've actually captured it and created it in a way that is very transparent. And that brings us to another concept, transparency in groups. A lot of non-engagement in groups is because of a lack of transparency. And this is some of the things that we need to solve for. So a structure like this attempts to also solve for transparency in the sense that when people know why they're doing what they're doing, because of they see the bigger picture, they do it with gusto. And when management is angry because there's a lot of reds in the dashboard, it's not because that dashboard is only being talked about in an executive meeting in the corner over there. This dashboard of how the group is doing is available to everyone. And it's real time. And it's a conversation that we're all having, you know, about what it is that we're doing. And that, for me, so we've actually seen real engagement uptakes where people are asking about things that are not related to what they're currently doing, but they have an awareness that this task that is being done by team B over there correlates to, it needs to meet up front with the task that they're currently doing right now. And they see on this dashboard, hey, look, these guys are struggling over there. And when that happens, we actually have an opportunity to tactically intervene and say, hey, guys, can we help that team over there? They're struggling with task X. And we tactically intervene, and then, you know, these tasks that were interdependent, but it wasn't obvious before because it was sitting in the minds of managers that these tasks are interdependent. Now, it will be clearly visible to everybody that, hey, man, look, these are interdependent. This one is struggling. We need to help over there so that they can meet up front. That also, it comes for free the moment you create transparency around goals and tasks and, you know, make a fancy dashboard around that. Yeah, so actually, that is most of the presentation, my friends. I was really just hoping that we can get to the point where we are the ones who are driving the conversation in the organization about what we, so there's things we won't get to. Hey? We won't get to executive levels and be telling them what they want fundamentally to do with the company. But they will be able to stop making so many micro decisions on our behalf because they will set a context and say, guys, these are the larger goals we are trying to achieve. And it's been said so many times in this conference that we're paying people ridiculous amounts of money to do a job, and then we're going to go and tell them how to do it? No, that no longer works. We have to create structures that enable for them to have the right conversation about what needs to be done. And that's what this attempts to be. I'm not partial to you being, using this structure in the exact way that I've got it over here. I'm trying to present the concepts that have been abstracted out of existing Agile practices and allow us to have a conversation about Agile at scale for groups and then maybe down the line for companies directly, you know. Yeah, that's for the most part the talk. Oh, I've got a help us button over here because you know, side projects. I'm going to be extending the functionality on this so that it can ultimately play out like a Jira, but at a team of teams level. So, yeah. So if you feel that you would like to collaborate, I've already got about 2 collaborators in creating this. It's a WordPress site. We're writing a WordPress plugin for capturing groups, tasks, teams, goals, and the likes. Then please, you know, drop us a mail and that help us over there. Again, it's agilecadence.org. But again, even if you don't do that, please understand that these are how we're going to create that flow that the keynote speaker spoke about this morning. I've been really happy to see the synergies in the talks that we've been having in this. Oz, you guys have done wonderful. I think you've brought a lot of space for bringing back that feminine aspect to a lot of the spaces that we find ourselves in the office. I think the office space used to be very masculine, and it was an imbalance. And Agile and the direction that we are taking now, where we're talking about humans and their feelings, is bringing back that feminine balance that allows us to actually catch that flow. And I think this was just me trying to create a structure for all of that. Yeah.
Jive us BFM for it.
Wait, guys. Amandla! Sifunani!
Sustainable agility.
Sha!